I hope you enjoyed the lunch. I missed it because I was trying to battle the Wi-Fi of this hotel on another call. Then I imagined if I was to bring IoT here, then that's a struggle because there's no IoT without internet. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed it. So I'm just here to extend the conversation, as the moderator has already mentioned, on Internet of Things and Internet of Banking. So when they asked me to talk about the Internet of Things in this context, to be honest, I was feeling a bit indifferent because most of the time I felt like Internet of Things is the most disadvantageous term in the technology space. Partly because I think we are all used to many things on the internet, so we never really make sense out of Internet of Things like that. And secondly, there's another part of me that if I'm standing beyond, my background is electrical engineering, so anytime I'm standing in front of people and talk about IoT, I often find myself drifting towards IoT, towards engineering. And these conversations with fintech, they want to talk about money, they want to talk about transactions. Fintech want to talk about business, where is it happening? But bottom line, Internet of Things has a bigger scope of that discussion. It's just that it depends who you're speaking to. So I'm going to try break that down in my presentation, and I hope we get there. For those who've interacted with me a lot more, 6 years ago, I began the Internet of Things research at Strathmore University. So if you hear IoT at Strathmore, that was me. And then while we grew along the way, and a lot of things have happened in the ecosystem, including Liquid Telecom setting up Sigfox here, quite a number of things coming around, like Safaricom talking about embedded SIM cards, and a lot of business that was happening in Davis and Shartleaf and them. And then, of course, Liquid Telecom, Sigfox did not take off. So I watched all those things happen, and then I felt like a few gaps were missing in the ecosystem of IoT. So what we did at Strathmore was we split IoT. So we stopped talking about Internet of Things. We just started talking about the components of it. And part of it was we were talking about the devices, and then we started talking about connectivity, and then we extended to the software. So I'm happy that that's the platform we built up Internet of Things at Strathmore. And then 2 months ago, I joined AFRALTI, and AFRALTI now asked me on another level again to lead the research and innovation. And for those who do not know AFRALTI, it's basically the African Advanced Level Telecommunications Institute. Now, it's an intergovernmental institution and pretty much covering the big South African footprint. But then again, looking at the ecosystem of Africa, it's not been so innovative around innovation and that. And so one of the key things, and the discussion we were having in the afternoon during lunch hours, I'm saying, was so AFRALTI is setting up a new research segment, collaborate with other partners to be able to lead an open spectrum study on IoT use cases for both extreme urban and rural. So that's the discussion we were having, and part of those segments include environment, energy, and water. But let's look at the bigger picture. Where are we at this point in time, even when I talk about Internet of Things? To be honest, for me, Internet of Things, I personally would prefer to call it massive intelligent data collecting devices, such that you get IoT out of the way and people can start relating with, you are collecting data to be able to do so many things with it. One of the things I've done, I still do even when I'm teaching students on Internet of Things, is I always try to ask them, if I was to task you to be able to be reporting the temperature of this room after every 5 minutes and trust that you won't fail me at any point in time, will you do it? Like, for example, imagine you're in an industry, and then this industry set up boiler rooms, etc., and then your work is to be able to report to the entire team the temperature readings of that room or the boiler environment after every 5 minutes. So you run in, you say, okay, it's 25 degrees. And then you tell you 5 minutes, go check again, 25 degrees. And then you go to check again, it's 26 degrees. You go again, it's like, oh, no, it's 20 now. And then we send you again, and then you confirm after five times, it's actually 20 degrees. The next time we ask you, you'll by default to tell us it's 20 degrees. But in reality, probably that's not the case, okay? But this is just part of the conversation that IoT can do. So in 2021, the IoT market already exceeded $500 million. Now, we're in 2023 now, and projections are looking at us passing the $2 million mark by 2027. So Internet of Things in its essence, as I mentioned those numbers and relating to what I've talked about temperature, is Internet of Things has a lot of plethora of applications. And that's why I keep saying it depends on who you're speaking to. For example, we could be talking about insuring this room. But to insure this room, we need to know a lot of things about it. If we talk about a car, again, it comes to that level. Bottom line, the whole car ecosystem is a business. Banks are involved. Insurance is involved. And quite a number of other sectors as well, manufacturing as well. So if we do not know the risks involved in trying to make money out of it, or whatever needs to be operationalized from that point of view, then we might not make a business out of the car system from an IoT perspective. So what IoT is actually doing in banking is bringing intelligence in terms of risk, in terms of trade, in terms of allocating funds, giving loans, giving grants, knowing your customer, KYC. So with all these things developing, the Wi-Fi Alliance has already said that there are going to be 5.2 billion devices by 2025 on Wi-Fi 6E. For those who do not know, Wi-Fi 6E is the new Wi-Fi technology. On the other hand, GSMA is also looking at having massive IoTs driven by 5G. Again, that means probably the number that I saw the colleague from Dell just bring up here, 55-point-something billion devices. And then on the other hand, Statista is looking at 75 billion devices. So all of these are different use cases in different sectors. Car is just one of them, which would probably fall under manufacturing and logistics and other things. There's also the sector of water, there's the sector of energy, and all these sectors are intertwined to banking, okay? So which is why we have to look at the bigger picture of all these sectors, even as we look at these devices. Where we are at this point in time, and for all of you who are familiar with the Internet of Things, again, me drifting to the engineering side, is Internet of Things will have an embedded environment. We just talked about edge devices. So the edge devices we are looking at is smart edge devices, wearables. How many here have, like Apple Watches, Fitbits? Anyone with an Apple Watch? I've got a Fitbit myself. How many have Apple Watches here? You see the numbers. Fitbits, any other wearable, there are too many in the market, so let's not really just exclude, leave all the others out. So that means you all somehow, in a way, you're actually involved in the space of IoT by generating data from the edge, in this case, collecting your temperature, your world tracking, your fitness, etc. Imagine all that data, because IoT is just, that edge part is just for us to collect data, but imagine making sense out of all that data. So that data is collected, and then you find a report from Fitbit or Apple Watch, and then you are getting other aspects of insurance, etc. So that's one end of IoT, of embedded environment, that has evolved, and that's the bigger picture that I would like you to look at. Secondly, there's also the wireless networks. There's no IoT without any connectivity. Just remember that. If someone ever asks you to deploy IoT when there's no connectivity, you're not doing business. It won't work. And that's why companies like Liquid Telecom, Safaricom, are stepping in the space because they're in the connectivity space. And if you're looking at where we are at as the bigger picture, of course, 5G is top of the list. I don't know, we don't have so many use cases, but there are families such as the narrowband IoT, LTE-M, Bluetooth Low Energy, so that are developing businesses from the wireless side of things. And then you have LoRaWAN for the open Wi-Fi, for the open wireless networks for IoT. And then you have the software stack, and then you have application verticals. I'm putting all these segments in the orange because that's where the banking business comes. It depends where the business you're looking at is. In this context, I mean, if you are talking to a company that will give you data about people, cars that you're giving out on loan, then you need IoT to be able to secure all the understanding of what will be like a business case for you there. And then on the side of networks, again, you need a business, probably a provider that can be able to provide that for you as well. But when IoT walks into banking, these are the things that we are looking at. Okay, this is some of the things I'm just throwing around because I doubt a short time is enough to break down IoT as much. But in essence, you can start thinking about things like this. So you're having advanced connectivity systems for systems, integrated to devices and applications. And then this can give you improved analytics. So knowing how someone is using a particular car, you can change the dynamics of the interest. Knowing how someone has bought or you have a leased property. So with that leased property having tagged with IoT devices, you can have an improved decision-making approach. I mean, you get a lot of analytics from that, and you know how to charge or add the interest on that leased property. There's also the Wallet of Things, which is an improved customer service. Wallet of Things is more like you can make payments without having to have a lot of user input. So for example, assuming this has not happened in the country yet, but I think it's something now to think about from an innovation point of view. You get the energy consumption in your house coming to a level of telling you this is what's left, this is where you need to top up, and if you are low, you get a notification that is integrated to the bank to be able to get that payment happening. Or you're getting a loan for that. That's just an example. I don't know the best examples to give from that point of view. But there's a lot that could happen in the energy space for you to integrate with banking. And then you have a wallet of things. Some of the most pressing ones are more like you have a car that is going to be fueled, autonomously tells you, the closest fueling station, and then that interacts with the system of the bank, gets the funds from there, you have your car fueled, you have that transaction giving you a report. So those are some of the things you're talking about, Wallet of Things. And then you have real-time life insurance, what I'm saying in terms of Fitbit and what Wellcon has been able to do. And then climate financing. So climate financing is a big topic. We have these sensors that have been put in farming or healthcare or whatever, or just working on the environment, or some of them working in the energy space, and then they are relaying data for you to know how much you would actually provide as financing for a climate innovator, or provide as funding for farming. So those are some of the dynamics of the climate financing for banking. And then you go smart branches and cardless transactions, which I think has been mentioned by the Dell partner, so I'm probably not going to go over that one. And then you go risk mitigation in trade finance. So in this case, you imagine you're in the business of logistics and someone has not given you, there's this company called Gateway Marine Services. So what they do is they transport goods refrigerated from maybe Mombasa to, say, Kampala. And then somehow along those goods are actually insured. But what if parameters of temperature change and then you have spikes in the generators themselves, and then something happens to those goods and then they are coming to claim for insurance? Yet you never had the thresholds around at what point will this not happen the way we had initially intended for us to be able to say we will pay you back. So if you have sensors that can be able to collect this data, and then we are defining the thresholds to say, okay, with these parameters having fallen below the threshold that we see this needs to perform, then that will change the way we are going to trade. We are not going to give you this much, we're going to give you this much, which will probably save money for the banks. But that's something that's not existing at this point in time. So where do we go next? I think where we need to go next is more collaborations on Internet of Things. Partly I still feel, and folks who invested in IoT a while back, some of them have pulled back because a lot of change in the market. But to be honest, as a country, we've not done any market research around this, where we have a shared data to know which sectors are picking up quickly to be able to make money. And banks can be involved in that to be able to generate as much revenue as possible. As AFRALTI, what we're doing is setting up a regional IoT lab. As I've told you, we are covering a bigger African footprint. So having a regional IoT lab is going to have a lot that's coming with Netacard, teaching you a lot of networking and all that. And then we have a lot of use cases to be demonstrated on 5G, Wi-Fi 6E, and low-power data networks. But more importantly, we also want to build enough capacity, because while we talk about these technologies, we also understand that there's a limited skill set that can be able to drive this forward. So we look forward to enhancing capacity on this and being able to drive a lot of collaborative IoT. Thank you for now.